Taking a deep inhale breath. And exhale, let it go with a sigh. Inhale. Hold, suspend. Exhale through the sigh. One more time. Inhale. Hold. Chin lock, root lock, pulling it up. Exhale with a sigh. Feel yourself just landing here in this space, the sit bones into the ground, chest and crown elongating up towards the sky. Relax the shoulders, relax the face, pull the chin back, the crown up, and just feel yourself landing in this space, in this moment. Breathing, allowing, releasing, breathing, allowing, releasing, letting go, letting go, letting the breath become long and deep, shoulders back, chin back, crown up, just feeling yourself settling into this space. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Noticing the breath on the way in, chest and belly rise. Notice the breath on the way out, chest and belly fall. Shoulders relax some more, chest lifts a little bit more, chin pulls back a little bit more. Feeling the third eye open, the throat open, the heart open, belly open, pelvis open. Inhale. Exhale. Just a nice soft wave. And feeling of nowhere to go, nothing to do, just kind of starts to wave over us. Like I don't need to be anywhere else. I don't need to do anything else. I am. I am here. I am breathing. I am here. I am breathing. Softening the shoulders. Lengthening the spine. Softening the face. Relaxing the thighs. Landing. Allowing. Landing. Allowing. Landing. Allowing. Into this space, we're going to layer on a mantra and visualization meditation. We're going to begin to chant Sat Nam. We're going to chant that in a 6-wave breath. So I'll guide it in just a moment. And Sat Nam means to bow to the truth, or I am the truth, or I am embodying the truth. And as we chant through the waves of Sat, we're going to visualize energy starting at the base of the spine, in between the sit bones, the first chakra, and then coming up with each wave through the chakras. So we'll first visualize at the base of the spine, then into the pelvis, the sex organs, then into the belly, then into the heart center, then into the throat center, then into the third eye center. As we finish Sat, we'll say Sat at the very end. And then as we say Nam, as we chant Nam, we're going to visualize energy coming out through the seventh chakra, Sahasrara chakra, the crown chakra, out into the ethos. So then we start again. It goes like this: Sa, Ah, 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 At, Nam, out to the crown. Sa, Ah, 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 At, Nam, out to the crown. Start at the base of the spine again. Sa, Ah, 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 At, Nam, releasing. Sa, Ah, 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 At, Nam, releasing. Sa, Ah, 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 At, Nam, releasing. Sa, Ah, 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 At, Nam. 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 Sa, Ah, Ah, Ut. Nam. Sa. Ut. Nam. Waking up each of the chakras. Sa. Ut. Nam. Letting the energy rise from the base of the spine to the crown, through the crown. Sa. Ut. Nam. 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 Last one. Sa. Ut. Nam. Just soften for a moment. Feel the vibrations, mentally vibrate through the chakras, feeling that Sushumna, that central energy channel, open, clear, the chakras in balance. This meditation helps us to see our opportunities more clearly, to see what's going to be reinforcing, what's going to help move us along in our path, and then what opportunities we might leave on the table that they might be able to, we might not need them as much as we think. We can allow them to go their own way. And we get more clear about what is reinforcing our authentic self, our true path. Start to get more in line with our truth, with the truth. Our own truth and the truth start to align and work together rather than oppose each other. Getting all the chakras in balance, all those energy centers, the grounding through our creative, through our power, through our love, through our truth, through our wisdom, through our reconnection to the divine. All areas functioning optimally, working in concert, opening, allowing, guiding, trusting. Satnam, I bow to the truth. I surrender to the truth. I align with the truth. I am the truth. Taking a deep inhale. Hold, suspend, engage. Exhale. Inhale, reach the arms up. Hold and shake the arms out a little bit. Shake, 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 shake. Exhale, arms up. One more, inhale. Hold, shake the whole body, shake the head, shake the arms. And now exhale, just release the arms out through the auric field. Take your time, feel, watch, notice, allow, release and let go. Release and let go. Turn the palms to face up. And just settle in, maybe opening the eyes. Starting to take in the external as well as the internal. And welcome. Thank you all so much for being here today. It's great to see you all again, be with you all again. I'm really so grateful that we're on this journey and this path together. And so thank you so much. And as I've been mentioning this week, so we're diving a little bit more. That's besides, I just mentioned that meditation once again. That's out of from the Kundalini tradition, and I did that meditation for like 90 days every day for a while back at the end of one of my trainings, and really, really powerful. The using mantra and visualization together is a really incredible combination of energy, and so that's a pretty straightforward one. And anyways, might try playing with that, and it really is a great. It's designed to get us in line with our truth, to get us in line with seeing things more clearly, as you know, especially like if we're having troubles making a decision or something like that, or choosing between one thing or another. It's a really great meditation to start to clear away some of the chafe so that we can start to tune in a little more clearly to where we're supposed to go. So hope that was fun and got you into a nice place for today. And from there, we'll build on our journey as we continue along together. So we're diving more into the yamas and the niyamas. And so the next several weeks are really going into the nuances of the yamas and the niyamas. We started off with ahimsa and satya, as I mentioned. Those are really the two foundational practices, which without those, we're really going nowhere with our practice. So it's really important to kind of keep those in mind, like on a daily basis. Okay, I'm here to practice nonviolence, loving kindness, and to live from the truth. And that doesn't mean that we're going to do it perfectly every day, but that's our sort of intention. That's our goal. That's where we're going to kind of, again, with loving kindness, measure ourselves against how am I doing? How am I doing with loving kindness? How am I doing with seeing and living from the truth? And as we talked about with Satya, the truth can be a little more elusive. We're usually pretty aware, or we can be aware of when we're being unkind if we take any time to consider it. The truth is a little more elusive because it's, again, truth is relative to our conditioning, our circumstance. And so we're trying to actually get beyond that to some deeper truth, some deeper alignment. And, but that's our intention. And then we start to go into, okay, well, let's look at several aspects of that. Everything that we're going to do from now on in yoga is really about giving us opportunities to explore those two things, to reinforce ahimsa and satya. And so we're going to go through the next, so let's say like 6, right? So there's going to be 3 more yamas, and then the first 4 niyamas that we're going to set 7, actually. So 7, right? And then we go to the last one, the last niyama. And that, I'll just do a quick skip ahead because that'll help to explain everything we're doing, is the last of the niyamas is Yusvara Pranidhana, which translates is surrender to the divine, or surrender to the Lord, or surrender to the truth, really. So you're going back to connects back up to Satya, right? So that, and we'll talk a lot more about that when we get to it. It's the sort of capstone on the whole practice of yoga and meditation. It's this, once we sort of see the truth, we need to surrender to it. We need to stop fighting. Our ego needs to stop fighting with the truth and with the divine. And so thinking that we are somehow it, but rather there's something else that we're trying to release into. And so those three, ahimsa, satya, and Ishvara Pranidhana, become kind of like the pillars or like the legs of a stool, right? So they hold the whole practice up, and everything else gets sort of built on top of them. And that's not just the yamas and the niyamas, but really the whole practice gets built on top of them. So everything we're doing is moving us towards a realization of ahimsa, satya, Ishvara Pranidhana, loving kindness, truth, surrender. So those are the really the pillars of the whole practice of yoga. And so everything we're going to do between now and Ishvara Pranidhana is sort of little nuances of that, little sort of like, okay, let's look at this. Let's look at this piece. Let's look at this piece. And that's what we're going to do the next several weeks. We jump into Asteya, which is the next of the niyamas, the third one. So, and it translates as non-stealing. That it's interesting. I'm like it's kind of like I was sort of like, why is this the next one? Why, because the order of things in these ancient scriptures is quite important, because all these things were meant to be memorized, right? And so things at the beginning are usually easier to memorize, and things at the end, right? So that's why Asteya and Satya, first two, Ishvara Pranidhana is the last one, right? You're more likely to remember those because they're at the beginning of the list and the end of the list, right? So, but then things tend to get lost a little bit in between. But there's no coincidence, I think, that Asteya is the third. So right after the first two, these main pillars of our practice, it's like, okay, let's look at this, non-stealing, right? And most of us would, I think, say pretty easily, like, oh yeah, of course, don't steal. Like my mother taught me that when I was like 2 years old, and so it's like one of these taken for granted qualities that we get taught pretty young, and yet there's a reason why. It's like, if it's so self-evident and self-obvious, why is it this, like, okay, let's take a look at this first, right? After these first two things, let's take a look at how you're not so good at this, right? So how we tend to steal, and what does it mean? And so we're going to dive into that today a little bit. What does stealing mean? How do we steal? How do we maybe don't even know how we're doing it? But something occurred to me as I've been going through this process this week, and talking about it with a few people and sharing the journey along the way, that Asteya is really in some ways the beginning of trust and faith. So we often don't, we tend not to sometimes talk about trust and faith in our spiritual life, or but there is obviously in religious life, trust and faith is a big notion. It's an important part of it, right? I trust, I have faith in whatever practice I'm having. And Asteya, in many ways, the opposite of stealing would be a sort of trust and a faith, And so as we explore this, I just want to kind of keep that in mind, that what this is moving us towards is a sense of deep okayness in ourselves, so that we don't need to take, that we don't need to steal. Deep okayness in this kind of plan for us that's unfolding. We are focused on it, and we are moving towards it, but we don't feel a sense of, oh, it has to happen now, or it has to happen at any particular timeline. It's trying to move us towards a more harmonious and equanimous, I'm not sure if that's a word, it's, place, so that we're not harming. And again, we're not harming, we're living from our truth, we're still doing these other things, but we can look at, am I taking or not? Am I kind of grasping? Am I taking, whether I'm conscious of it or not? And, I think if we're all honest, I know I have, have seen where I've maybe was taking from someone's time, someone's reputation, somebody else's work that they had done, that I was sort of taking advantage of in some way, So this is a humbling process. I've mentioned that already, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful for all of you being here. Is that in order to go on this journey, we have to be willing to kind of look at how we haven't always measured up to what we would like, and again, this is where ahimsa comes back in, right? We have to look at that with kindness, but at the same time also that truth. So it's like, okay, these are two, this is where we're going to go today. We're going to use these first two tools, ahimsa and satya, to look at ourselves more clearly. So I hope we're ready for that. Again, we go on this journey with knowing that we're all good people here, right? So we all have good intentions. We all are, I think, more than, I don't want to put ourselves too far on a pedestal, but I know all of you to some extent, and, extremely, what I would say, kind people, thoughtful people. And so it's not like this is some condemnation of us. It's more just looking at where we might not see, right? We might not see that we're doing something that is maybe taking me on some journey which isn't as authentic as I would like it to be, or isn't. It's not even a matter of liking authenticity. It's a matter of am I being faithful? Am I being faithful to myself? Am I trusting the universe here, or am I not trusting it? And hence I feel I need to kind of take it, or I deserve it. That sense of obligation. Not obligation, but that I'm owed something in a way. So I'm just going to kind of take it. That sense of maybe we've done something for someone else. And so now we feel like they should do something for us, right? So it's like, was I really doing that out of some graciousness, or was I doing that because I was expecting something back in return? And so it gets tricky, how we're doing this. And yeah, sometimes, as we said before, we can be kind or magnanimous, but actually we're wanting something. We have an agenda. We're trying to build up our status in some way, right? So that we, it's like, can get some advantage. Right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we dive more into Asteya and our relationships. So I thought I would just read a little bit first, and then we will we'll dive into conversation. You guys can chime in, let me know what's resonating with you, what's not, and we'll go from there. When we compare ourselves to others, so by the way, we're using this book. I like to make mention of it, The Yamas and the Niyamas by Deborah Adele. It's a nice introduction. Some of you have it, some of you don't. It doesn't matter if you do or not. There's plenty of references out there that we can refer to. But this is a nice introduction to the Yamas and the Niyamas. When we compare ourselves to others, we either find ourselves lacking, which makes us feel somehow cheated, or we find ourselves superior, which leaves us feeling somewhat arrogant. Our attention on others from a place of discontent within ourselves can lead us to live vicariously through others, or to try to control, manipulate, or manage them in order to boost our own sagging ego. We may find ourselves trying to trump or one-up their stories and successes and experiences by coming behind them with our own more fabulous tale. It is all an attempt to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. So one of the things that I have to watch in myself, this right away, this is right at the beginning, right? So it started to kind of trigger me a little bit. And that is this tendency when I'm in conversation to, when I'm hearing someone's story, to try to relate it to myself, or to relate my own, like, oh yeah, that happened to me in some way. And the next thing you know, I'm talking about myself and my own experience with that, as opposed to continuing to sort of dive in to that person's story. I'm kind of quickly relating it to my own perspective, my own experience, and I'm not, I'm now trying to kind of relate. And sometimes that's okay. Like we're trying to bond around something. So we're trying to like relate to it. But other times I realize I'm turning this story onto me, when I'm making it about me now, rather than making it, continuing to inquire about and reinforce their perspective. And so that's just a subtle moment. And I'm not saying this is bad, or it's just, I'm just using it as, am I taking this person's share that they've shared with me and now making it about me in some way, rather than, like trying to return the gift in some way. I'm actually taking the gift. See what I mean? So these are subtle things about how we might be stealing from others to make ourselves feel better, right? And to reinforce our own perspective and our own kind of egoic notion of how things are going. And again, I say this without really any judgment. It's just a noticing where that's coming from. And is it being fed from maybe some insecurity about the moment? So maybe something's coming up in that conversation that I want to, on some subtle level, redirect into a more comfortable zone. Like, you've ever done that when somebody brings something up to you and all of a sudden you find yourself sort of giving advice in a way, like, oh, I'm trying to redirect this into a way that actually feels more comfortable for me, rather than kind of inquiring more or exploring down their path more. Just, again, just something to notice. Let's read a little bit more and then we'll open it up. We are visitors to this land, to our bodies, to our minds. To fully appreciate this reality is to accept that nothing on this physical plane does or can belong to us. To own something then becomes a form of stealing. We use the term I, mine, and my with almost everything. My house, my car, my clothes, my kids, my partner. We even say, I had a flat tire. The ownership of things is steeped deep in our language and culture and makes it hard for us to appreciate the extent to which nothing really is ours. The guidance asks us to view everything in our possession as something precious that is on loan to us. And for the time that it is on loan to us, we are asked to care for it. So let's just take a moment here to stop and see these two things about how we relate to the people in our lives and the things in our lives, and how often we look at it as from a sort of mine perspective, or my, we use that terminology, I or mine, and maybe not so much this kind of notion of a bowing, of a humility, of like, this has come into my life, this person or this thing, and how do I take care of it, right? But actually, what we're referring to is, how do I own? When she's talking about owning, it's more like, how do I manage it so that it serves me, right? So these are subtle, obviously. This is subtle stuff, but it's an important kind of difference. Would anyone like to share any perspective or story that they might have about any of this stuff that's coming up, where we could see some of this? Please unmute yourself.
Yep. Hello. So it's interesting. When you talk about, or she does, about comparing to others, you're either lacking, you feel cheated, or superior is arrogant. And I just had this conversation last evening with a very dear friend. I love her. She's wonderful. And she's talking about her daughter needing LASIK eye surgery. doesn't know how bad the daughter's eyes are. And of course, my eyes are horrible. I'm just afraid of that. But, so I'm interested and I'm showing interest. And then she started with, well, she's out in California. Well, Beverly Hills has the best of the best doctors. She has the best retinas. He's using them on a poster. There's no other place better to get LASIK than, she's building this I don't have good doctors. I don't, whereas the doctors out there are superior. She's superior. The daughter, it was a really weird feeling. And I was like, I really don't care where she's going to have this done. And I had to sort of try to bring her. I didn't want to follow her story, Greg, because I was like, get over this. You could have this done anywhere in the United States. But it was just a very uncomfortable place. Like suddenly my eye doctor, whoever I'd go to in Connecticut, if I did it, is not as good as the daughter because it's $6,000. I said, it was just an odd feeling of someone you really love and listen to, but I couldn't get taken into that story of just letting it, because I felt sort of like maybe I'm not superior. It's like,
so you're not good enough in some way.
Yeah, like, oh, I don't have the doctors, whereas this is, it was just really odd. I said, you've got people all over this area who are awesome, not just Beverly Hills. So she kind of didn't know what to do with it. So that's what I'm saying. When you have, as you said, get on board and stop applying it to yourself. But I was like, not just me, but here. It was just odd. I don't know. I felt like I was a little small nobody. And I'm actually feeling pretty good about myself, but it was just, I tried to relate and it was hard for me too. And it's just someone I really love. So it was hard, as a girlfriend, it was weird.
Right.
Yeah,
no, I really appreciate that story of, being with somebody who's getting very kind of caught up in having the best of in some way, right?
Yeah.
And how, that can make us feel inferior in some way if we're not choosing that for ourselves. And so, in that moment, there can be a lot of what the agenda is affirming their choices. I mean, most of the time when we're sharing something with somebody, friend, we're actually looking for affirmation. We're looking for to be affirmed in our perspective. And it takes a really talented friend to be able to sort of say, well, maybe there's another perspective here that you might want to look at. Like there are really good doctors here in Connecticut too. I mean, they're fine,
I did say that. I did say that, but but not in Beverly Hills. Her guy is the best of the best.
Right. But that's, again, okay. That's her story that she's going down. And the question for us becomes, can we be kind of compassionate with that story and see how maybe she's caught up in having the best of the best and all that stuff, but not have it pull us into some inadequacy, to just sort of see that people get caught up in this all the time. They get caught up in that. She's caught up in that stuff and in the status of her stuff.
Yes.
So we've talked before about the hedonic cycle. So the hedonic cycle is basically this thing about we get caught in wanting more wealth, more status, and more like good looks or appearance. Like and basically it's a cycle which you can't get off. Once you get on, you can't get enough of it. and so it's basically a misery making cycle, because there's again, you cannot get enough wealth, you can't get enough status, you can't get enough plastic surgery or good looks or being, go to the gym 10 times a day, whatever you want to do to sort of make your appearance better, right? These are things which you can never satisfy. And so in a way, again, we're looking at Asteya as like, how do we get off that cycle? How do we get off that cycle? And one of the ways that, as she goes on in the chapter about Asteya, is to really look at what really gives our life meaning. This is where my inquiry started to go with this, is okay, if I don't want to be stealing, what I have to do is be really clear about what it is that I do want and need, and try to be very clear with myself, and then to the extent that I can, be very clear with other people too about that, what it is. And I really kind of rounded it down to sort of I think 3 or 4 things. I wrote them down. And then we've talked about this before to some extent about what do we really want, right? And the first thing we do want, I think most of us, is a sense of safety. So we want to feel relatively safe. And so that becomes relative to each one of us. Some people need a lot of things to be safe. Some people don't need that much to be safe, right? Some people can't, want to feel really insulated. Other people can be more exposed, So we want to feel a sense of relative safety, right? Then after that, it's so that's an important one, because figuring out what we really need to feel safe, which has to do again with how much money do we need, how much stuff do we need, that kinds of stuff, like those basic security things. That's first chakra energy. That's important to kind of get a handle on, to really think about, because the more stuff we need, the more, in order to feel safe, the more work it's going to be for us. We're going to spend a lot more time doing that. The less stuff we need, the simpler, the easier we get that need met. And from there, we move on to meaning. So what gives our life meaning? And this goes into meaningful relationships, meaningful work, and meaningful experiences. And that's pretty much the whole gamut right there. So I need some safety, and then I want meaning, in my life. And so then we can start to look at what gives us meaningful purpose, meaningful relationships, and meaningful experiences. And again, the more we can be in line with our expectations around those things, the easier it's going to be for us to get them, and two, the less violence we're going to do along the way to try to get them, and the less stealing, the less manipulating, and that kind of stuff. And so that's a really good story, but it's really, what's the most important part of it is how it made you feel, Denise, and then how do I do that? I think one of the hardest things that we go through in our evolution as we start to become more enlightened is some of our friendships go by the wayside. And it's because they're not moving along with us. They're still in that hedonic cycle. They're still in the wealth, status, appearance. Like, if I can just get a little bit more of that, just get a little bit more of that, just get a little bit more of that, I'll be okay. Then I'll feel okay. And if we start to take ourselves off that cycle, then it becomes hard to relate to people who are still on it. It's not impossible. We can be empathetic and we can be compassionate, but we don't feel like we're really traveling this journey with them, right? Because they're on one trajectory and we're maybe on another. Does anyone else want to add anything about this? Because this is sort of important. Yeah, Barbara, let's hear it from you.
Well, as I was, listening to Denise speak and then your follow-up, it sort of really resonated with me, because many of you know that I raised my granddaughter Daisy, a very young child, and I had a lot of help along the way to get her through living in Weston. I mean, Weston is a great place to live, but a lot of people in this town have a lot of stuff, and I can't compete with that, and nor do I actually want to. It's just not valuable to me. But when it really came to a head was in junior year with college, and it was a nightmare. Trying to find financing to get her into college. I just didn't have that to give to her. And then I would have other parents coming up to me and saying, "Oh, so where's Daisha going to college?" And I would explain, we're trying to work on that. And I began to feel myself that I was not doing enough for her to be able to get her into college. And I then took all of this on myself And for several months, it just ripped me apart trying to do it. And I realize now that I was stealing from myself, with that, feeling that I wasn't providing her with enough. And I talked with her about this. She even said to me, Granny, I don't think it's fair that all of my friends, they get whatever they want. And they can do whatever they want. They go to colleges, they won't have debt, etc., etc. And I thought about it. And the one thing I said to her was, it may not be fair, but that's life. It's life. But on top of that, you're going to have to earn everything you get. And this is going to equip you in life far better than just being given everything. And that has actually played out in such a way that she has total control over her own life. She doesn't have to rely on me. She doesn't have to rely on other people. She can do it because she's learned how to do it, because she wasn't just given it. But bringing it back to the stealing and the non-stealing, I allowed myself to have my peace of mind stolen from me. I probably stole that from myself.
Right.
I feel I stole that from myself.
Right.
And once I got to the other side, I could kind of, and as I'm talking about it, I can still feel my shoulders tightening up. But now I can go, actually, I did my job.
Mm-hmm.
I did my job by just allowing her to be with whatever shows up and not expect to be handed everything. So that is sort of my personal feeling of stealing. I mean, I have many, many more, but that, I think, it goes along with what Denise was saying, because that, when Denise was speaking, and thank you, Denise, for articulating that so well, because it really reminded me of what I allowed myself to do to myself. I'm not going to blame other people because I allowed it myself.
Well, it's interesting, Barbara, and just to quickly jump in, not to talk too long, but here's very interesting how we all in this group think, is this gal who I adore said her daughter out in LA or whatever said, oh, well, this $6,000 eye thing was LASIK. That will be my birthday and Christmas present. And so my girlfriend said at that moment, she goes, do you see how well I raised my daughters? They're not asking for the money. They're saying, don't get me presents for, this will replace Christmas and birthday. So mom and dad are still paying for it. And I'm just like, I was like, whoa, this is really, wow. That's just, and yet in her mind, she thinks this is fabulous that, her kids they're on the right path. And yet, as you said, in this area, Weston, Westport, these kids are very privileged. They get everything. They don't have to earn it. They don't have to, but in her mind, she thinks this was terrific. And I sat back. I didn't say anything. What am I going to say to that? Barbara, you tell me. Greg, you tell me, And these kids are in their 20s, 26, and it's just amazing. And yet she raised her kids very well in her mind. And that was funny. I did kind of laugh inside, but same thing.
I have to laugh at that because I seem to remember that my dad, when I finished college and I came back home to Hong Kong to live, and we got free electricity because he worked for the Hong Kong Electric Company. We got free company housing. My dad made me pay rent to stay there. And that helped pay for the AMA, the lady who did our cleaning and stuff like that, and my food. And I said, but Dad, and he goes, no, that's the way it is. Now, years later, he actually saved all that money up and he gave it back to me in the form of a check to help with the down payment for a house. Years and years later, he gave that to me as a gift. And he went, see?
That's a great story. Madeline, do you want to add something?
Yes, I do. We moved here from Maryland. My daughter was 12 years old. My son was 9. I moved to Westport. My kids got jobs. Soon as we came here, they went to work. My son was 9 years old and he was paid. Do you remember Arcudi?
Yeah.
Okay. He worked for Arcudi, not such a nice guy, as a dishwasher. And he got paid. He wasn't allowed to work at 9. So he got paid under the table. I just want to tell you that all of his friends kept saying, I mean, we had nothing when we moved here. I moved from Maryland and everybody kept saying to them, why are you working? We don't get it. And the truth is that they have great working skills today. Everyone, both of them have always worked. I can't remember. I've always worked. And I think that was a really good teaching for them. I mean, they would say, my son bought things, but he bought it with his own money. I remember his first car. He bought with his own money. He had a landscaping business in Westport. He made, I still remember this, $3,500 that summer. And that was a ton of money for him. And he had people working for him and they all loved him because, I mean, his ethics were amazing. He paid them top dollar or what he could afford to pay out of the business and still cleared $3,500. And he could barely get into college. I mean, he's very successful today, I have to admit, but he could barely get into college. And I remember I said to him, Brad, where do you want to go to school? And he said, whoever takes me. He got into Hofstra because of his landscaping business. They were so impressed with him that he could handle all of this. Thank goodness he went to Hofstra. I mean, I didn't know he was ever going to graduate college, but I think that it's the teachings that you give to your children. I mean, I just feel really good about it. I really do. They never come to me for money. They never ask for anything. And I am extremely close to them. I mean, it's just amazing to me when Barbara was talking about her granddaughter. I just feel for you. I really do. Because people used to say to them all the time, why are you working? We don't have to work. And they didn't. They had everything given to them. Some of them are on drugs now. Some of them don't have jobs. Some of them are just spoiled brats. I mean, Brad is still in contact with some of them. They need a lot of help. I mean, some turned out okay. I'm not going to say everybody didn't, but I mean, I do feel good about that. And Barbara, you should too.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for those stories. Those are really really real stories and really heart moving. And so I just want to thank you all for sharing those stories of how do we, balance between accommodating, obviously, and supporting our children and the people that we love, and then giving them the wherewithal to learn the life lessons. Like you said, Barbara, like life is not fair. That notion, and there's an adolescent or maybe childhood part of us, right? Every kid comes to their parents, this isn't fair, this isn't fair. And at some point you have to turn to them and say, well, where did you get this notion that it was going to be fair? That life was going to be this sort of fair deal all the time. It's not the way it is. And doesn't mean it can't be beautiful and amazing and all kinds of other wonderful things. But fairness is a strange kind of concept that we latch onto. And yes, we want life to be just, and we do want, to be kind of fairness in the way we treat people, but that not everybody is going to have the sort of same opportunities, and so we try to understand that, and then obviously we can move along in our cultural way of trying to make things systematically more fair for people. But all of you have told this story, really, at least what I've heard, is living in a relatively well-to-do place, right? You know, we know Fairfield County is what it is, right? That is the water we swim in, as we got that from some other author, I can't remember, but it's the water we swim in, and hence we're going to be profoundly influenced by it. And it's very hard not to take some of those inadequacies personally, right? To actually identify with either the things we have or what we're able to provide for our children, and not take it personally as some kind of not good enough in some way, you know, and as opposed to, there's just so many different ways. And actually those stories, you know, that like Madeline said and Barbara said, often having the hardship ends up helping us, right? The actually having to figure it out on our own ends up giving us the life skills that we need in order to grow. And so this is where we go back to sort of trusting, right? We go back to the opposite of stealing is trusting, right? So rather than try to kind of, you know, stealing from yourself there, Barbara, or stealing in some other way in order to get what we think we need, because all these thinking what we need is mostly a cultural phenomena. Mostly what we think we need has been given to us rather than us really sitting and saying, well, what do I need? One, to feel safe, and two, to have meaningful work, meaningful relationships, meaningful experiences. If we sort of focus on that, then we actually need a lot less, right? As opposed to, well, I need this now because this person has it, or I need to do this because this is what everybody else is doing. And, you know, I need to have this kind of car, or I need to have this kind of vacation, or, you know, I need to provide this kind of experience for my children because this is what everybody else is doing, right? So that's, you know, then we get caught in the, how can we, you know, either manipulate or get things easier and that kinds of stuff. And so those are really good stories that I think accentuate this issue of when we get caught in identifying externally, then our tendency to get pulled into taking advantage in some way or stealing from ourselves gets higher. One of the things I remember Ram Dass saying is that whenever we have an agenda with someone, then on some subtle level, they're going to have resistance, right? So if all of our relationships, and I'm not saying that any of us is like this, but if our relationships are all about getting our needs met or getting, you know, what can I get from this relationship in some way, then that you're never going to get past that. That person is always going to have some kind of resistance. They may be friends with you and they may interact with you, but it's a very sort of transactional friendship. As long as you're reinforcing their egoic needs and you are reinforcing their egoic needs, you can kind of maintain the relationship. But as soon as something, you can't get to a deeper level until you sort of drop this agenda, which is basically comes back to, are you going to be an actor in my movie? Are you going to help me reinforce my egoic sense of myself? And as long as we're caught up in that, which is a sort of offshoot of that hedonic cycle a little bit, it doesn't have to be the hedonic cycle, but it's a cousin to it. As long as we're kind of caught up in our egoic notion of ourselves, and our relationships are our reflection of our egoic notion of ourselves, exactly. We can't get beyond it. And until we start to feel safe, at least safe, like there's opportunities for meaning, you know, and if we have those things, then we can start to build more spacious relationships with people. Does this make sense? Okay, we're gonna wrap up pretty soon. It's already 1 o'clock. Would anybody else like to make a kind of maybe somebody who hasn't spoken yet, if you'd like to make any comments before we kind of wrap this up today. There's some nice stuff here. I'll just finish. Anyone? I'll just read a little bit more. Not only do we steal from others, the earth and the future, we steal from our own lives in all the ways that we impose an outside image of ourselves onto ourselves. We are stealing from the unfolding of our own uniqueness. All demands and expectations that we place on ourselves steal from our own enthusiasm. All self-sabotage, lack of belief in ourselves, low self-esteem, judgment, criticism, and demands for perfection are forms of self-abuse in which we destroy the very essence of our vitality. All the ways we live in the past or future steal from ourselves, and all the ways we put up fences, whether real or imagined, around our physical belongings or around our mental idealisms. We put up barriers that steal from the full expansion of our own lives. We are captured in a culture where our very identity is tied up with our accomplishments. We wear all we have to do like a badge on our shirt for all to see. In this rush to get to the next thing, we have left no time for ourselves to digest and assimilate our lives. This may be the biggest theft of all. We need time to catch up with ourselves. We need time to chew and ponder and allow the experiences of life to integrate within. We need time to rest and reflect and contemplate. So I think that that's a nice place to end, because it can look at, it kind of ends up on this sort of balance. Yes, we're all here in Fairfield County doing our thing, trying to obviously on one end fit in, but are we also giving ourselves the space and compassion to integrate and to be with the full range of ourselves, to be with our shadows and our light, and how do we cultivate both actually in order to manifest our beauty, our strengths, our contribution to this world. And so, I think this is, this chapter, while sounds kind of elusive and obvious, it's actually, I'm really sure there's a reason why it's that next one. It's that third one. It's because there's a lot of ways in which we steal from ourselves and others, which really represent a lack of faith in ourselves and in the universe. So I hope we can take this with us through the week, and I continue to look forward to exploring this more. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any other thoughts or questions about what's going on or where we're going with all this. So let's just take a moment to land one more time. Feel the sit bones into the ground. Feel the crown making its way up towards the sky. Breathe deeply, bringing the palms together. Take a deep inhale. Exhale, let it go with a sigh. Inhale. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May there be peace, peace, peace. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste, everyone. I'll put us